Moscow is once again raising its rhetorical pressure on Ukraine and the West. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov said the United States has allegedly shifted its position on Ukraine and is now not ready for the proposals it previously put forward. In an interview with the TV Bricks network, Lavrov repeated core Kremlin talking points, claiming that what he called the Nazi foundations of Ukraine must be eliminated as a condition for Russia's security. He also insisted that Russia would not accept any deployment of weapons in Ukraine that Moscow considers a threat to its security interest. Lavrov added that the Kremlin viewed US President Donald Trump's position on Ukraine as important, regardless of what Kyiv or, in his words, Russophobes in Europe might say. He claimed Russia accepted certain US proposals discussed in Anchorage, but now believes Washington is backing away from them. He did not specify what those proposals were. He also referred to the Putin-Trump meeting in Alaska in August 2025, saying Moscow expected broader cooperation afterward, but that this did not materialize. Lavrov did not give concrete reasons for what he described as the US reversal. NATO is preparing a possible Arctic mission and at the same time restoring limited military communication with Russia. This was announced by NATO Supreme Allied Commander Europe General Alexis Grinkevich during a visit to Luxembourg. He said a mission called Arctic Sentry is now in the final planning stage. The alliance wants to strengthen security in the high north as Russian and Chinese activity in the Arctic continues to grow. The plan focuses on presence, monitoring and closer coordination among allies in a region that is becoming increasingly strategic. Grinkevich also confirmed that the United States and Russia have agreed to re-establish a military-to-military communication channel. For now, this works through a dedicated military working group. His direct contacts with the Russian side have been limited to negotiators in that format. He described the talks as constructive and focused on practical next steps related to a possible peace agreement on Ukraine. At the same time, NATO stresses that diplomacy is running in parallel with a very harsh phase of the war, especially because of the continued Russian long-range strikes against Ukraine's critical infrastructure.
The long-range strikes are probably the story of the winter, with Russia attacking critical national infrastructure in Ukraine, causing significant power outages. The Ukrainians have talked about what the impacts of that are. But again, it's a brutal conflict. We all are working to achieve President Trump's vision of peace in Ukraine so that we can move on.
Ukraine is taking its drone industry beyond the battlefield and into Europe's defense market. President Volodymyr Zelensky says Ukrainian weapons technologies, especially unmanned systems, are now moving into export and joint production with the new hubs and factories opening across Europe. Zelensky announced that Ukraine will begin opening weapons export centers across European countries starting in mid-February. Over the coming year, up to 10 representative export hubs are expected to operate across the Baltic and Northern European region. He also said production of drones based on Ukrainian technology is launching in Germany, with the first unit expected off the line soon. Similar production lines are already operating in the United Kingdom. According to the president, about 450 companies inside Ukraine are currently involved in manufacturing different types of drones, forming a broad domestic defense tech ecosystem.
We are opening up exports. In 2026, there will already be 10 export centers in Europe. This includes the Baltic states and the countries of Northern Europe. In 2026, 10 representative offices will be operating. In mid-February, we will see the production of our drones in Germany. I will accept the first drone. This is a production line that is up and running. Production lines are operating in the UK as well. All of this is our Ukrainian technology.
France is preparing new air power support for Ukraine. Paris will deliver another batch of Mirage 2000 fighter jets. Ukraine's defense ministry reported the agreement after talks with the French side. The package is not only about the aircraft themselves, but about broader reinforcement of aviation and air defense. Work is also underway on supplying a record volume of Hammer-guided aerial bombs, accelerating production of Aster anti-ballistic missiles, and potentially expanding the package of long-range strike weapons, including Scalp missiles. A separate track is defense industry cooperation. The sides signaled a letter of intent on joint weapons production in Ukraine and France. This points not just to deliveries, but to a gradual move toward core production. Mirage 2000 jets are already operating with Ukraine's Air Force. The first aircraft arrived last year and have been used to intercept Russian missiles. Now the fleet is set to grow. At the same time, Ukraine is looking further ahead with the plans to transition part of its pilots to more advanced platforms and to continue long-term modernization of combat aviation. NATO armies are still often training as if it were in the 90s. Analysts from a Romanian defense outlet note that some alliance exercises look like preparation for a last-century warfare, heavy armor, classic maneuvers, and very limited adaptation to the realities of today's battlefield, where drones have already rewritten the rules of war. Recent joint drills by American and Romanian tank units became a telling example. Crews practiced live fire and tactical maneuvers day and night, but experts pointed out a critical gap. The tanks had no anti-drone protection systems, which on today's frontline are not an upgrade, but a matter of survival. Russia's war against Ukraine has already shown, analysts write, that drones are not just a temporary substitute for artillery. They are a decisive combat tool in their own right. That is why more and more observers say Western armies will have to rethink their training models faster, or battlefield reality will outpace doctrine. Ukrainian forces say the settlement of Ternuvate in Zaporizhzhia region is back under their control after a sweep operation that removed a Russian sabotage group which had briefly entered the area. The clarification came after Russian channels earlier spread claims that the village had been captured. In response, Ukrainian soldiers recorded and published a video from near the settlement sign showing a Ukrainian flag and stating directly that the area is held by Ukraine. In the video, a serviceman says Russian reports about taking the settlement were hour-long victories and not reality, adding that Ukrainian troops are on the ground and continuing operations there. According to Ukrainian officials, the Russian group used weather conditions to slip into the settlement, raised a Russian flag, and filmed staged footage. After reconnaissance and search actions, Ukrainian units located the group, cleared the area, and reportedly captured several of the attackers. Ukraine's first basic national resistance course of 2026 has reached its final field test, and it did not look like a classroom exam. It looked like mud, stress, teamwork, and live scenarios. For a full month, 80 civilians trained side by side with the combat veterans on open range and rough terrain. No theory-only modules. Every block was hands-on. They completed 15 practical disciplines: first aid under fire, small unit tactics, marksmanship, UAV basics, communications, military English, and international humanitarian law. The focus was simple: real skills for real emergencies. The program is voluntary and free, but its scale is already strategic. Across 2024 and 2025, the key regional national resistance training center alone prepared more than 10,000 civilians. Participants come from very different backgrounds: students, volunteers, and professionals with no prior military experience. Regional resistance centers are becoming a core layer of civilian preparedness, a nationwide resilient system built for a country under constant threat.
Unfortunately, we have an enemy who doesn't care about civilians, about children or women. They kill everyone. That's why everyone in our country should be able to know and have basic military training skills for what may come next. And if we're talking about girls and women protecting the country, no. First of all, it's about protecting their own families and their children.
That's all for now. For more content, please subscribe.